All right, Darren. Let's first look back then at Tuesday's trip to Wealdstone. You mentioned after the game in the post-match interview that you felt a lot of anger after that 2-1 defeat. How are you feeling? A few days after.
Well, when you brought Tuesday night back up, I got angry again. I was all right before then. I think there are some performances. There's almost a manner in which people lose, and it's acceptable or unacceptable to lose. One of those ways is to not try, which I don't think is in the DNA of my group. And another way is to do such basic elements of the game so badly that you sometimes you can't defend people. Sometimes you have to stand there and take the slack and so on and so forth. We're all men. We're all, we're not. There's no one here that's a minor or anything like that. So sometimes you have to just take it on the chin. We were so poor at so many simple things, and it doesn't matter if it's Yeovil, Wealdstone, Yeovil, Wrexham, Yeovil, Man United. It's 11 men v 11 men, and someone has to prevail in those games, and it wasn't us Tuesday. I thought we did enough second half to get a point or win it, but there's so many poor parts to our play that, and it makes me angry that I can't come out and defend them, because I love defending this group. I like getting behind them. They're fabulous. So, but no, we weren't good enough.
Okay. And they do say that you're only as good as your last game. Eastleigh managing a point last Saturday away to Maidenhead, and they've only got 1 point. That 1 point from their last 5 games. Will their current form play into this weekend at all against a team that you did actually manage to beat at home?
No, I don't think the level allows that. I think it's probably one of the only leagues where form is quite irrelevant. We have a saying here of runs of one, and I think that's more applicable to the division. I think that if you have players that play at a super high level consistently, they don't play in the 5th tier. They play in the 3rd or the 2nd. So I think form is irrelevant. We're not in great form ourselves, and we've got lots of areas that we need to address and lots of work to do on the coaching pitch. But to not sound too boring each week, these are elements we already know. This is a developing group, and the problem with Tuesday night, it doesn't give me a chance to get in front of them and say there's lots of evidence to say they're getting better or they're improving, because the performance was regression rather than progression. So, there's lots we need to do. The training yesterday was excellent, really excellent. And look, they're not. It's not the players. When you lose or play badly, the manager has a huge part to play in that as well. So we always look at what we're doing and the way we're doing it, and being a very experienced football coach, there are other things that maybe I could be doing to help them and support them, and the players need to perceive a support professionally and personally, and they're the problems that you face, but they're good problems, and they're things that we always try and overcome, and the players are certainly working hard to try and overcome them.
And nice to have Jack Robertson back in the side on Tuesday. So any news for him in terms of game time at the weekend?
I thought Jack was poor Tuesday, very poor. I thought both fullbacks were. Jack and everyone. Going to our oldest player on the night, Ruben Reid, to the youngest player, they have to play well and consistently. Otherwise you keep changing and you try and find a balance in other ways. So it's important that we get performance levels up. I think it's really important that we. And by the way, I thought Luke Wilkinson was useless Tuesday night. So, I certainly don't want to dig 2 lads out that have just come back in the team. I thought Wilkinson was poor, but I thought everyone's got to find a balance. I've never had a problem with upsetting people and leaving them out. That's never been a problem for me, whether they're old or young, and very honest and straight with them. And I think that that's the only way to be in terms of feedback. I always like my feedback. I call it 1 to the head rather than 5 in the chest. I'd rather people just tell me. And I think we've got to improve on that performance, and I've got to help them. Again, it's definitely not just the players. I've got to find a different way of helping them, especially offensively, because we don't create enough chances, and there is some good technicians in the team, and it's not always the passer of the ball that is at fault. A lot of the time it's movement and timing and receiving, and we've got to try and improve that, because for the first time in my 21 years, my team scored less goals than games. I mean, I was normally the one that scored loads of goals and conceded loads. Now it's the other way around. I don't particularly like it.
I can't imagine so. And I asked this question to Luke, so I'll ask the same to you. What do you expect from Eastleigh?
Always tough games. They give us a good hiding last year, twice. I think I got sent off there last year, actually. Yeah, I did. So, they're tough games, very competitive. They've got a big cohort of senior players, and they've got quite a large percentage of seniors, and then kind of half and half with very young. Obviously, Tom Whelan's there that we know very well. I think Tom's having a really good season, really matured and developing as a player, and he's a key player for them. But they've got some very good players, and they've got some good athleticism in there. It's a good club. It's a very good club.
And just last one from me, really. Lots of managers say that, especially sort of this latter part of the season, is the time to grind out those sort of 1-2-0 January, February kind of wins. We are realistically in February now. Where do you expect or hope for Yeovil to be come, the end of March time, just before the end of the push for the end of the season?
What do I hope or what do I expect?
We can answer both. We'll start with expect.
We're 3 or 4 places above where we should be, really, in the scheme of things. If you base it on resource, we're punching well above our weight. If you take the season in its entirety, if some they're saying, well, you didn't punch above your weight Tuesday, I get that. I absolutely get that, and I completely agree. But we then punched way above our weight when we've beaten some of the more resourced teams and in the division, away from home, at home. So I think that's the reality of the situation. What I hope is that we can be competitive in and around those 7 places, those top 7 places. I hate seasons petering out, and I won't allow that to happen in this football club. We've got a bit of a strange dynamic when it comes to from now until the end of the year, because there's a lot of obviously uncertainty. But knowing the group the way I know it, they'll carry on working hard and throwing everything on the line in order to be competitive. That's what we still hope. If you add Mark Little up here, Mark still thinks we'll win the league. I mean, he's brilliantly ambitious and got great standards. So, yeah, I think they're 2 very, very different questions. Very, very different questions.
Okay, that's all from me. Thanks for your time, Darren.
Thanks, mate.
Morning, Darren. How you doing?
Morning. Yeah, good.
Good. Darren, you've always been a manager that's steadfastly stuck by your team. You've always been, you've given them the credit that they deserve, really. So to hear you on Tuesday night was kind of a bit of a shock. And I mean, was it that bad?
For me, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. I think I have to kind of be very careful with the players because on one hand I've worked with the very best that the country has, or the level that this country, the top level in this country, and senior players at that level. But I'm now working mostly with young players in 4 or 5 divisions below that. So you've got to be realistic. Definitely, there's definitely got to be a development head on there, because it's not their fault. They are developing, and and you've got to create the platform and environment where they feel they can go through these periods or these passages of, you know, negative or criticism or constructive criticism, and they can come out the other side better, bigger, stronger, faster, more worldly, etc., etc. And but there is an underpinning line under that says, no, hold on, that's okay, but that's not okay. So, and you know, the basic tools of football, especially technically, if you consider yourself to be a professional footballer, those basic tools need to be evident every day, because they're the ones that define professional from amateur. And I didn't think we performed technically, not a character or attitude, but technically I thought we didn't perform well enough Tuesday night to warrant, you know, the credit or accolades that one as a professional should deserve. So I just always try and say what I see. I think that's why I've got a pretty decent relationship with our supporters. I don't think I try and paint over the cracks. It's important that you're honest and people, you know, everyone sees that honesty and how it's delivered to the playing staff. So we gave the ball away so much. I mean, it was horrendous. I've never asked a team in my life to play 50, 60-yard passes, and we just repeatedly did it. So I think I spent 60 of the 90 minutes with my head in my hands. It was, I didn't enjoy it at all.
And, you know, having come from a run of, I don't know, was it 13 games or something? We had a really good run. To go to one now that's sort of 1 win in 10, it's difficult to turn it around again, isn't it?
But it depends how you look at a season. You can look at a week. You can turn it into, you know, 5 points from 4 games. You can turn it into 6 points from 2. You can turn anything into whatever you want to. But the crux of it is it's a season. It's a season. So it's how many you win, how many you lose, how many you draw, how many goals you score, how many goals you concede. It's a season. So I never ever look at things like that, because if you look at runs and things, you know, as soon as we get on a run, all you lot talk about is how do you guard against complacency. I mean, and then when we don't win, it's how do you turn it around? How do you make them confident? And it's all mumbo jumbo. It's another game, and across the season we'll find out exactly where we are and where we sit in the pecking order. But on the balance of the 20-odd games we've played so far, we've exceeded my expectations, that's for sure.
You know, obviously words were said, I'm sure, after the game on Tuesday night, but have you seen the right response with the training so far?
Yeah, of course. I'm not one that has massive hangovers after games. As I alluded to in question 1, you know, I was good for Thursday. What's the point in worrying about what happened Tuesday on Thursday? We can't replay it. We can't go over it again. I wish we could, but we can't. All we can do is be positive, and you know, the basis of any type of resilience is to be positive, have good self-confidence, be focused, motivated, you know, support, all of those things, and that gives you that those qualities give you the opportunity to always bounce back and you know, and come out fighting. So they're the kind of the attributes that I try and bring after a defeat, and I think that's important. Again, we're working with young people. You know, we're not working with people who have seen this 1,000 times. We're working with people that have never seen this. So you've got to be positive. We've got to have good belief in ourselves. We've got some good players. We've still got a lot of good players in form. You know, I think of late, Gorman's been outstanding. Staunton coming back in, he's been very good. So, you know, we got a lot still to kind of go with, and it's important that we stay on that path. But all that 10 wins in 13 and 1 win in 10 mumbo, that means nothing to me.
Well, come out fighting on Saturday, and let's hope you have a good result at Eastleigh, and off we go then. We get a run of 10 wins on the trot.
Yeah.
Thanks, Darren.
Cheers, mate.
Morning, Darren. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, pal.
Cheers.
just going back on what you said, then is it better in a way that you've got games coming up quickly to kind of ignore what happened on Tuesday and just move on?
We've ignored what happened on Tuesday. There's no point thinking about Tuesday. What's the point of thinking about Tuesday? What's the point of thinking about something so bad? Jesus, it's just not in my makeup. It's not in the players' makeup. I won't allow it to be in the players' makeup. We move forward. We move together. We look at different angles of how we approach things to ensure that we don't play like that again. If we see improvement, great. If we don't, we go back to work. That's it. That is it. The fact that their attitude is what it is, and we all know that they are a fantastic group of people with great attitudes and a lot of determination and care for our football club, is a massive positive and means that they have the capabilities of moving forward all the time. But progression is never in a straight line. It's full of peaks and troughs. So, we just play through. We play through. We have to ignore all the noise and the cloud and, runs and garbage like that. And we need to concentrate on our performance levels and make sure that we perform to the standards that have been set previously or are being set moving forward and, kick on.
And I know it's not in the forefront of your memory, in your mind, but on Tuesday, with how you are in the season, is there much thought going on with that game and the competition in particular?
I don't understand.
The Somerset Premier Cup on Tuesday, is it going to be much...
sorry. Yeah, the first team will play that game. Who else is going to play it? Who else is going to play the game? Our reserve team ain't got one. Youth team ain't got one. Who's going to play that game? I'm not going to put lads who, train 2 or 3 times a week, 16 years old, minors. Can't put 12 of them against men. Well, someone's going to get hurt. I might be able to put 2 or 3 in and surround them with some big boys, but I don't understand what people expect. We have to play the competition, and we've got one football team. We'll be there. I'll be taking the game. There's no other manager, no reserve team manager, no youth team. I'll be doing the game. My staff will be there with me, and we'll play the game. We'll change it up. We'll mix it up. But the first team will play the game.
No, that's great. And obviously, you've mentioned in the last couple of weeks that you're asking for more. You want new faces to spike up. Is there anything in particular that you feel you're missing, or is it just getting a new face and new numbers in?
Well, it's depth, isn't it? It's depth, and I always think at the halfway stage of the season, a new character in the dressing room can really stimulate, new conversations, new relationships, all of those things. So important. Like when anyone comes into your place of work that's new, it's the new guy, girl, and it stimulates discussion, all those things are important. I think in my first year, I think we brought in Mark Richards at this stage of the year, and I remember Mark walking through the door and Luke Wilkinson saying, "Is that Mark Richards?" And I went, "Yeah." He went, "Oh, we're serious then, aren't we?" Yeah, pretty serious. Yeah, we're trying to win it. So I think those kind of moments can really ignite and players, the dressing room. I'm not sure we'll be able to afford a Mark Richards, but we're still trying to do some work, and we're hoping there'll be a new one in before tomorrow, and I'm hoping I'll have my assistant by next week.
I've just read a couple of reports about a potential player who might be close. Are you allowed to kind of talk to us about that at the minute, or is it still too far away to mention?
Who's the player?
Alfie Bridgman from Portsmouth.
Alfie trained with us 2 days last week. He's an apprentice. Still an under 18, so there's nothing really to talk about. He came and trained with us.
No, that's fair enough. It's just reports saying you're close to signing him online, but if that's all it is, then that's fine. Yeah. Best of luck for the weekend, Darren. Take care. Mate.
Hi, Darren. How you doing?
Yeah, all right, mate. You?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Just to wrap up a bit of player headlines, really. Tuesday night was too much for Mark Little and Lawson Diath. You said you didn't want to break them. How are they feeling? Are they in contention for Eastleigh?
Mark is. I don't think Lawson is. We're trying to strengthen Lawson a little bit further. I think the 70 minutes on Saturday was maybe a bridge too far, even though Lawson won't admit that because he's a stubborn ox. But yeah, so we're kind of doing a bit of a physical program for Lawson so that he can really get stuck in, because he's obviously, as you can see, it's a bit. If Lawson was, if I felt that Lawson could cope, he'd play every minute of every game. He's been fabulous when he's come on the pitch for us. So he's a really good player, and I want to make sure that he doesn't go through the same journey that he did last year when he put himself right on the coalface to, almost cost him his career and almost cost him a lot more. So I don't want to be that person. I want to strengthen him and get him back. Mark trained yesterday, which was great, and he should be okay for tomorrow.
The other one that seemingly disappointed you a little bit and frustrated you a little bit was the injury to Jordan Barnett. How's he doing? Is he in contention for Eastleigh? Yeah,
Jordan should be okay. He's got, obviously, today to kind of pass that test, but he should be okay. And it was interesting because any player they almost get better when you can't use them. You kind of build them up to be an even bigger part. But I thought Jordan would have been of real benefit to us Tuesday night with his width and his pace and his left foot. So if Jordan's fit and available, he'll definitely be in contention.
I asked Lou Wilkinson, and he couldn't quite put his finger on why our record against the bottom six, we're winless in 6 games against them, but our record against the top 7, we've got such a good record against them. Is there something in that, or am I just reading too much into it?
Absolutely. No, there's something in there. I've said this all along. When we have what we have, not players, but resources, you have to commit to one thing or the other. We can't sign this year experienced players with a really rounded profile that you kind of just stick them in a kit, off you go. So we can't do that. And what I had to make a conscious decision was, do I sign young players? Let's put them into 2 categories, like Sonny, so a physically underdeveloped player, but technically incredible. Or do we sign, what would be the other one? Charlie Wakefield, a physical specimen, can run, but still needs work technically on his game. And we felt that if we were going to have one thing every week, it was going to be athleticism, good attitude, speed, hunger, those types of qualities, because I think those qualities endear themselves to people more than anything else. And we committed heavily to that recruitment. Jordan Barnett's in that category, Matthew Worthington's in that category, Morgan Williams is in that category, Jack Robinson's in that category. I mean, the Max Hunt's in that category. So the list goes on. The only couple that might not, the only one who definitely is was Gorman, signing Gorman, because Gorman was rounded, definitely rounded. I don't mean his body shape, by the way, before anyone starts hammering him. But he's more of a rounded profile of player. And so the difference when we play against the top teams who play a little bit bigger and more open, and their shapes are a little bit more vast and expansive, and players stand on each touchline, what it gives us a chance to do is utilise our athletic qualities to the absolute extreme, because the distances are at their biggest and we get there quicker and earlier and more often than anyone. There's not a better team in our division that presses the ball than us. Impossible. When we play against other teams, maybe the other side of us, they sit very deep. Wildstone went into their 5. I saw Chorley do it in the first season. They went into their 5, and then what you've got to do is you've got to have the technical capacity to break that down. And what we didn't have Tuesday night was a technical performance of any level. Forget about whether a player is good at it or not. We didn't have a technical performance level that was good enough to create chances and break the opponent down. So I think it's absolutely stares people in the face why we beat the better teams or bigger teams or whatever. and we've struggled to play against teams below us because, and it is because of those facts. Now, if you want a Sonny Bluelow Everton technician alongside a Charlie Wakefield athlete, yeah, I'm going to need a few more quid for those ones, I'm afraid, chaps.
Someone who probably did cost a few more quid is someone you're going to come up against tomorrow in Brett Pitman, signed by Eastleigh. I know you've said before you don't necessarily worry about one individual player, but I was thinking his attributes, characteristic-wise, experience-wise, goal record, etc., ticks a lot of boxes for the sort of player that you would have probably wanted to have signed at some point to enhance this current squad. Was there ever a consideration that we might have been able to have a go for him? And more to the point, does that show the difference in resource available at the likes of even Eastleigh in the mid-table with us?
Absolutely. Nail right on the head. Boom. Yeah, Brett Pitman's been a brilliant player. Brilliant, you know. Watched him for years. I was at Brentford when Eddie Howe took over at Bournemouth. And that was his second year. And we won the league that year at Brentford. We won League Two that year. And I remember Brett Pitman being part of those teams. Very, very good. Very brilliant finisher. Similar to Murphy, you know, purely interested in tapping it in, finishing it off. But they have such a intuition and instinct in and around the box, those types of forward, that, yeah, you can't help but be an admirer. He's been a top player. Top player, and it's a brilliant signing, absolutely brilliant signing, and one that, you know, the marquee type ones, you know, the ones that the supporters get behind and things like that. But look, I know we're talking about resources, and I don't want to be misquoted or misunderstood here. I love our group. I wouldn't trade my group for anyone. They're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The way they commit to our football club is something we should cherish, and because eventually one day they won't be here, you know. So it's something to really sort of hang on to. We might give the ball away a bit too much than the other teams that I've had here, but for human endeavour, enthusiasm, energy, commitment, determination, and no one's better.
You mentioned that you're within a touching distance of being able to appoint somebody alongside you in the dugout as an assistant. I'm not expecting you to start naming names and things like that, but was there an application process, or is it kind of a contact where someone's been recommended to you, or it's somebody you know in the past, or was there actually interviews and things like that?
No, just me going after the people that I think I wanted. I think my role since Terry left went from 100 mile an hour to 1,000 mile an hour, and if I'd have done an interview process, a formal one, where we had logical steps and stages to those processes, I wouldn't have been able to go to sleep at night. I mean, there's not enough hours in the day as it is at the moment. So it was very much, the timing that Terry left was awful, by the way. So Terry's an idiot for that, because it was right in the window, and in the January transfer window, Ben, you get thrown about 100 names a day, and what you don't want to do, or what I never want to do, is miss out. So I research every name. I do my due diligence on every player, however small, however big. If he comes from a team 3 divisions below, I still research it, because I don't want to miss out on anyone. And so Terry would obviously take 50% of that load, and off he'd go. So we'd have 50 a day each. But it got so busy in that recruitment front that I had to almost suspend any sort of conversation around the coaching post, because players are far more important than coaches. And it meant we just had to focus our energies on one thing rather than the other, or I had to focus on one thing rather than the other. Over the sort of last couple of weeks in particular, I've been able to make phone calls to people that I think have qualities that we need. And it's not just an assistant manager, or has he been an assistant manager before? It's about the qualities that they're going to bring. And you've always got to try and stimulate the dressing room. Doesn't matter how much money you got, you got to try and make a difference. And I think though that takes a pool of people into a minority anyway, because you've got to believe they're going to make a difference. So I spoke to some friends and former colleagues, former players, and took advice, but also tried to whittle it down really to a point where I thought these individuals are going to have the biggest impact on our football team, and that's all it's about. All I care about is winning. So, who is going to help us win the most, and for the resources that we got.
Final couple from me then. This week, the EFL celebrated something they were calling Youth Development Week. It's something that you've spoken really passionately about during your time with Yeovil, and it's something that Yeovil have been fairly well known for throughout our EFL stay, through loans and through the odd homegrown player. How good has it been to see certain young players develop whilst you've been at the club, whether it be loans or the odd one or two that have made the transition through as a young player, the Toby Stevens and whatever?
Yeah, it's been mostly loans, I think, with us, because the academy prior to obviously closing wasn't really what I would call an established academy. I mean, it hasn't been 50 years, 60 years behind it. It wasn't that. So I think aside from Alfie and Toby, it has been loans. But I love development's always been my thing, really. So watching a young player develop and giving him the tools to grow is great. And the thing is with young players, they just do everything you want. I love working with Tom Knowles. Tom Knowles is one of the most coachable players that I've ever worked with. Joe Quigley was really coachable. It gives you a massive satisfaction as a human being when you see that you're affecting positive change in people. I've got to say we've had a decent trading record in my 2.5 years in terms of players that we've signed on free transfers or young players and then sold them. So it's always a really good part of the job, and affecting change does leave you with that nice warm glow. But I think youth development in this country, I think it really needs to wake up, if I'm being honest. I think it really needs to understand what it's doing and what it's not doing. 0.1% now graduate from a Premier League apprenticeship into a Premier League footballer. So let's say, I'm sure it won't happen, but if my son has the choice at 16 years old whether to be a Premiership apprentice or keep studying, I know as a parent what I'd be advising him to do. There's just no chance. 0.1%. They spend 20 million plus a year for 0.1%. I'm no business guru, but they're not great stats, are they? So, the big thing for me when I went in at Watford was that players that were in their 20s and playing in the under 23s, we wanted them to go and have careers. I sold Randell Williams to Exeter. Dion Pereira, we got it to the MLS. Any of those 20-year-olds, Jakubiak, I think went on loan to Scotland because he was 22, 23. The whole thing is just wrong. 23 years old and still in an academy. 23? It's a grown man. It's not an academy. And then, so my biggest thing when I go into clubs in the development format is to make sure that the academic provision of that academy is at its very, very best. And when I went to Watford, it was in the high 60% of achievement rates academically. And by the time I left, it had gone up to 97%. Why? Because if they didn't go to college, they didn't play football. Pretty simple, eh? Pretty simple.
Very simple.
But
very simple when you put it like that.
Well, but how important? How important is it young people are well educated, articulate, can write, grammatically correct, speak properly. Those values will never ever die. They have to, but they have to be encouraged and sometimes enforced. And I used to enforce it by trying to, use football as a vehicle to motivate them to be a better student and a better human being. But I think English development now is. I think Brentford are the best. They're just the absolute best, and they don't have an academy. So I'm not saying having an academy is wrong, but the way Brentford perform, very, very good, very good. I think Millwall are excellent, very good. There's some. Tottenham are very good with Dean Rashtrick and formerly John McDermott and Chris Ramsey and people like that. But 0.1% for 20 million investment. I'm not sure any dragon would invest in that one.
Finally, for me, I do also have a question about Tuesday against Cheddar. 3 names that haven't played many minutes for whatever reason this season are Max Evans, Alex Bradley, Toby Stevens. Are they expected to maybe start, maybe get more time because of the nature of the competition?
Yeah, definitely. Alex is doing really well at the minute, by the way. I've seen a real resurgence in Alex. And I think that's shown in his game time of late. And we've had to have lots of conversations, Alex and I. He's a brilliant, brilliant kid. He's probably in as strong a position he's been all season right now. Max, just like any young man, needs to have those games. Toby's had a loan spell at Hemel. He probably is due another loan spell, and we'd like to get him out to get more games, especially now Lawson's back in the side. I don't want that young man sitting idle, but again, Toby's training very well, and in terms of apprenticeships, I mean, to have 2 years with a first team, it's a decent apprenticeship for him. He just probably needs a couple of games. But these young people, they don't realise how hard it is to play week in, week out in a senior level of any level. We saw that when I joined with Daniel Ojo and Alex John and Gabby Rogers. It's tough getting in the team. It's very, very tough. So, no, but they will definitely be involved. I'm sure they'll play. All 3 of them. Max will definitely play, and so I need to check on Toby as he's been on loan a couple of times to make sure we're not breaking any registration boundaries or anything like that. So, but I think Alex has trained really well late. Seen a real hunger and desire in him, and I think he's made an impression when he's come on. But those conversations have been very beneficial between Alex and I, and brilliant kid. But they're all so good. But I wish it'd be nice one day if the 4 of you could have a behind the scenes and see these lot in full flow. They're absolutely magnificent.
Can I ask about Alex? Because last season he was such a mainstay in that right back position. Yeah. Obviously, Mark Little's come in, Dan Moss came into that role. Did you potentially see him playing a little bit further forward this season in the midfield? Has it been just a victim of circumstance that it's not quite worked and he's not seen the minutes yet?
No, Alex did. I didn't.
Okay.
I signed Alex as a right back. And Alex, through discussion, and I'm a big believer that it's their lives. Alex's life is his life. It's not my life. He's got to live it the best way he sees it, and he's got to try and bring forward the best of Alex Bradley every day. And Alex thought that, and I don't disagree, by the way, I don't disagree with him, that he felt that he would be more beneficial to the squad playing in midfield. And like anything, if someone commits to another position, there is a reluctance then for that manager to play him in the position he's reluctant to play in. and that obviously drove our recruitment for another right back. And then it drove our recruitment for support for Mark when he became injured. And Moss has, without question, been a top signing for us this year. And it just meant that Alex was in a different pool of players. It meant he wasn't competing with Mark Little and Jordan Barnett for a spot, 2 from 3. He was competing with Worthington, Staunton, Gorman, Sonny Blue. It was a bigger pool of players, and then you got to be the best one. And I don't think there's been too many. I don't think there'll be too many arguments if I said I think Josh Staunton and Dal Gorman have probably been in the top 3 players of our season so far. So there's 3 midfielders left, and there's 1 space. There's 1 for 3, 1 for 3 or 2 for 3. So it's just been harder for him to force himself into the team. Gorman and Staunton in particular, and Matthew, they've built up such a credit with some unbelievable performances. I mean, Matthew's development, astounds me every year. So I think one more year for Matthew and playing, 35, 40 games would really see his career ignite again. I really believe that. But he's needed time because he's a completely different player now to the one that I certainly had first couple of days. But Alex has got all of the potential in the world. He can make whatever he wants of it. I thought when he came in last year, I likened him a little bit to Jack Stacey, who went from Reading to Exeter and on and on and on, Luton and then Bournemouth. I thought we've got maybe another Jack Stacey here, but you have these things as a manager. Players see X, manager sees Y, and I always think there's a middle ground. And I always know if Alex does go on at right back, he doesn't not give it his all. He gives it his all. He's a brilliant lad, honestly, a brilliant lad, and should be a model, that boy.
I hate to end on a negative, but I have got a negative to end on. Dale Gorman's 1 yellow card away from a 2-match ban. It's almost going to be impossible.
How's that
to avoid.
negative? That's a positive. He flies into people.
Well, do you know what? That leads into my question then. It's almost impossible to avoid it. He's not going to change the way. It's not going to be hanging over him over the next couple of games or whatever. No. It's just going to happen when it happens, is it?
Dale gets angry with the toaster when his bread doesn't toast quick enough. Dale's been like that since I've known him. I remember I sent him in from training one day as an apprentice. We were training off site at Stevenage, and Dale got the ump in a game, and so he took it out on some poor unfortunate bandit that he was playing against, and I had to say to him, Dale, that's not on that. You're gonna have to go. You're gonna have to send you in. Obviously, I said it that calmly as well, and he's been like that. That's why I went to Belfast to recruit and Dublin, because they're like English throwbacks. That's what they're like over there. They're brilliant, so competitive, so determined, aggressive. They're great. So look, Dale won't avoid 15. Forget 10. He'll be booked 15 times this year. But it's like this. People say about discipline, and what do you want from players? You want them to tiptoe around. I don't want to see people tiptoe. I want to see people get into the middle of the ring and dominate the ring. And of course, when you're that sort of way inclined as a character or your temperament, and you've got that fire in you, then it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable. Our great legendary ex-captain Terry Skiverton, are you telling me he never got booked?
Once or twice.
Yeah.
Once or twice.
And we loved him because he rolled his sleeves up and he puffed his chest out, didn't he, and had a right old ding-dong with people. So Dale's no different. I think sometimes as Dale gets older, he'll learn to hold his temper a little bit longer, but we all do that, don't we? As we get older, we calm down, we mature. I would hate to think what I was like 15 years ago. Blimey.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. Go well against Eastleigh.
Thanks, chaps.